Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
This week in Global Print, I will take you to Gilgit-Baltistan, which is a large chunk of territory in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which is now going to become Pakistan's fifth province. You know that Pakistan has 4 provinces as of now, which is Punjab, Sindh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Balochistan. And now Gilgit-Baltistan is going to be separated from the rest of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and is going to become Pakistan's fifth province. But before I explain to you what this means, and especially its significance for India, dear viewer, I'd like to make an appeal to you. Please do subscribe to ThePrint's free, fair, non-partisan, objective, and unhyphenated journalism. You know that we are not behind a paywall. So please do support us. The subscription links for an international audience as well as for a domestic audience are in the description of this video. And all of us, the galaxy of reporters at ThePrint, will bring to you the best stories, the best videos as we have been doing so far. So back to Gilgit-Baltistan. Now, the reason that India has made very stern remarks, been very critical about Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's announcement of a fifth province that Gilgit-Baltistan is soon going to become, is embedded in history. So let me take you back a little bit into history. If you remember, the country becomes independent on the 15th of August 1947, but until the 22nd of October, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, Hari Singh, has still not acceded to India or to Pakistan. Now, the Maharaja is a Hindu, as we know. His subjects are predominantly Muslim, so both Pakistan and India claims him. But on the 22nd of October, what happens is that Pakistani tribal militias, they're not tribals, of course, they are Pakistani army irregulars in tribal clothing. They invade India, or they invade Jammu and Kashmir, and they begin taking territory. Now, the Maharaja is very nervous by this by these turn of events. So he quickly accedes to India, signs the instrument of accession on the 26th of October. And 1 week later, which is on the 1st of November, the Gilgit Scouts, which is a paramilitary force far away in Gilgit, which is part of the Maharaja's undivided kingdom, they mutiny against the Maharaja. And the Gilgit Scouts are led by a British commander. Now, what happens after that? So, in Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian army is fighting the Pakistan army. In Gilgit, the Gilgit Scouts have revolted. So, on the 1st of January 1948, a few months later, Jawaharlal Nehru, then Prime Minister, takes the Kashmir issue to the United Nations. And there it has been ever since, with no resolution at all, a cause of bitterness between the both countries, that's India and Pakistan. Halfway through 1948, the Indian army is able to repulse the Pakistanis and able to take back territory. And then there is this informal understanding, and a line of control, or a ceasefire line, if you like, is established between India and Pakistan. So as of today, if you look at that ceasefire line, is converted into the line of control after 1971, but that's another story. But in effect, the line that divides India and Pakistan today in Jammu and Kashmir is practically the same line that was established on the 1st of January 1949. So the territories that India administers are on this side of the line of control, and the territories that Pakistan administers are on the other side of the line of control. So let me give you some idea of this huge kingdom that the Maharaja once ruled over. In the west, you have Gilgit-Baltistan, which nestles against the Wakhan corridor of Afghanistan. In the east, there was the Shaksgam Valley, which in 1963 the Pakistanis illegally ceded to China. In the west, you have Ladakh, which is now where the Chinese intrusions have taken place, or the Chinese aggressions have taken place. In the south, you have the Kashmir Valley, and south of that is Jammu. And of course, then there's Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So this huge kingdom that the Maharaja ruled over, which has now been divided up into India and Pakistan. Now, let's fast forward a bit and let me take you to August 5th, 2019, when the Modi government, in one fell swoop, revokes Article 370 and integrates Jammu and Kashmir into the rest of India by converting it into two union territories. The Kashmir Valley and Jammu is one, while Ladakh is a separate union territory. Now, as a result of that, several things have happened. And that's what Global Print is about this week. So, the announcement by Pakistan Prime Minister that Gilgit-Baltistan is going to become a new province is actually linked to the Modi government's decision to revoke Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir a year or so ago. Of course, we know that there has been a lot of disaffection and discontent especially inside the Kashmir Valley. But the international ramifications of this move, of the removal of 370, perhaps I'm not sure that they were that fully thought through by the Modi government. Be that as it may, let me explain to you what happened. So you have the revocation. Now Delhi directly rules over both Jammu and Kashmir, which is a union territory, like I said, as well as Ladakh. A few months later, which is in April of 2020, and we're just piecing together this information, the Chinese troops cross the line of actual control, which is again their undemarcated boundary line between India and China, and they come into Ladakh, which is where they are now sitting. We are going into winter. Winter has already begun in these parts. So Chinese troops are sitting on Indian territory in Ladakh, and the Indian army is face to face, perhaps not eyeball to eyeball, but in several areas they're very, very close to each other. So we know from some Chinese think tanks that one of the reasons why the Chinese aggressed into India and have since taken Indian territory is because they were apprehensive of the fact that Delhi would expand its influence or expand its control into Aksai Chin, which India still continues to claim. In fact, one of the years of the 2 years, one is Aksai Chin, which India lost control of after the 1962 border conflict with China. But there was this perception, according to these Chinese think tanks in China, that the Modi government, because it suddenly changed the special status of Jammu and Kashmir and began to rule it directly from Delhi, would now also expand its control over Aksai Chin. I frankly think this is a bit of an excuse, because if the Chinese were so concerned and so apprehensive, they would have asked the Indian government about what exactly its intentions were. And while the Indian government does claim Aksai Chin as part of its territory, after all the maps, all the cartographic material that we see, Aksai Chin is very much part of India. But if you think about it, on the ground, it's the Chinese that control it. The Indians have absolutely no control. So I think this was a bit of a ruse on China's part, a bit of an excuse to aggress into a neighboring country. And, they pretend that the Chinese pretend they are friends of ours, but I'm not sure about that. Now, the other year, if you look at the Indian map, which is Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and like I said to you before, Gilgit-Baltistan, which was very much which remains very much part of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir until elections are going to be held later this month. It will get a new assembly and it will become a new province of Pakistan. Now, what does that have to do with India? After all, you could shrug your shoulders and say, let Gilgit-Baltistan become a province of Pakistan. Why should I care in India? The reason you should care, dear viewer, is because Gilgit-Baltistan was once very much part of Maharaja Hari Singh's undivided kingdom of Jammu and Kashmir, which India continues to claim today. You know that the J&K Assembly, even today, leaves 25 seats empty, and that these 25 seats, or actually 24 now, these seats are left empty in the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir since 1947, because India believes, and there is a parliamentary resolution of 1994 to that effect, that we will once again bring back part of this and we will claim what is rightfully ours or rightfully India's. Now, once Prime Minister Modi revokes Article 370, integrates the state or the former state, makes them into union territories, I explained to you what the Chinese did. What the Chinese are also doing in Pakistan, and you know that that one of Chinese President Xi Jinping's key instruments of influence is the Belt and Road Initiative, which it has. So there are these trade corridors that are being built across the world or in several parts of the world. And one key initiative, highway of that BRI, which is the Belt and Road Initiative, is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Now, the CPEC enters Pakistan at Gilgit-Baltistan via the Karakoram Highway, travels all the way down the country towards the Arabian Sea, right up to the Arabian Sea where the Gwadar port is located. And on this highway, the Chinese are believed to have spent about $60 billion. They are not going to give it up very easily. In fact, the Pakistanis have also become hugely dependent on the Chinese, and the CPEC is a symbol of this overweening dependence by Pakistan upon China. Now, for the last several years, the Chinese have also been pressing the Pakistanis to give Gilgit-Baltistan some sort of formal status, that it cannot just be part of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And one of the reasons why the Pakistanis have refused so far is because of this dispute between India and Pakistan on Jammu and Kashmir and the UN resolution. The Pakistanis keep on and on talking about the UN resolutions, and India always says that this is a bilateral dispute between us and nobody else needs to get involved. So now you have Pakistan's over dependence on the Chinese, and you have India, the Modi government, which has revoked Article 370 and taken away the special status that Kashmir had on the Indian side. So what does this all mean? Now, if China has been pressing Pakistan to give it formal status, the Pakistanis, the Pakistan Army, the ISI understand that the Modi government is not about to give special status back to Jammu and Kashmir, that the toothpaste cannot be put back into the tube, that things are going to remain as they were, which means that India is going to continue to administer its own side of Jammu and Kashmir, and that Pakistan may as well come to terms with that. And that's why you have the Pakistanis acceding to the Chinese demand of giving some sort of recognition to Gilgit-Baltistan, and also at the same time informally conceding that both sides of Kashmir, POK, will be administered by Pakistan, while Indian Jammu and Kashmir will be administered by India. So right after Kargil, if you remember, then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and then External Affairs Minister Jaswant Singh, who would keep repeating this phrase, map making in the subcontinent must come to an end. Well, it's about 20 years now since Kargil. Kargil was 1999. We are in the 19th year. It seems as if finally the Pakistanis have understood the significance of that line, and the Chinese have pushed them to do so. So once Gilgit-Baltistan becomes a province, it will be ruled by its own people. It will merge and become part of Pakistan formally as well, which it has not been these past 73 years. But now it will be a proper part of Pakistan, and that will imply that Pakistan intends to keep it, and that it is, in a sense, giving up the status or the disputed status of the undivided territory that it controls. On India's side as well, India has also given up the special status that it gave to Jammu and Kashmir. So what does this mean? It means that both countries are beginning to learn to live with the realities on the ground, that they will administer and continue to rule over their own sides or their own parts of Jammu and Kashmir. And perhaps in the coming weeks and days and months and years, perhaps both Pakistan and India could have some sort of a modus vivendi that they had begun to talk about in the Kargil aftermath. But once again, let's look at the map. You have China that has taken Indian territory in Ladakh. You have China which is sitting on the Shaksgam Valley. That's this sliver of land between the two years. You have China in Gilgit-Baltistan. China is everywhere. This is Jyoti Malhotra for ThePrint. Please continue to watch, subscribe, and pay for our unhyphenated journalism. And we'll see you very soon. Thank you so much for watching.